Welcome to the first podcast for Business as a Force for Good. I'm really excited to be launching this podcast today, but even more excited to have our first guest today. This is Carolyn Butler-Madden, and her business is called The Cause Effect. And Caroline and I, we've known each other for a few years now, and we've also collaborated on a few projects together. And I really do think this is a perfect way to set the scene for this podcast, because this is something that we talk about all the time, and I think it'll be great for our listeners to actually hear, the way that you work with businesses to really set the scene, for these conversations, and that really reinforces the point of this podcast, which is that we can share stories about some really inspiring businesses that are doing some great things in the world. They're giving back to community, contributing to charities, the way that they look after the environment. And we want to inspire more business owners to do that, and in particular, small to medium-sized businesses. So really great to have you here with us, Carolyn.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to our chat, Kirrily.
Yeah, me too. I know that you work in the space of some larger businesses in this sort of work, and actually for them to get really aligned and clear about how they can become a purpose-led business. Now, quite often, with the business owners that I speak with, there is probably more the conversation around, people want to make a difference. They want to make a bit of an impact. But in that space of, what you do and being a purpose-led business, how do we distinguish those two things?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's one that many grapple with, and there are actually many misconceptions around it. So I define purpose as the value that a business or an organization or a person contributes to society through and beyond their products and services, right? So that's as opposed to we're a business, we make profit, and we give back when we can, which is great, right? And that's the traditional way of thinking about things. And that's often where businesses start. But it presupposes the idea that you've got to choose profit or purpose. And the truth is, purpose and profit go hand in hand, not head to head. When you're doing it properly, it actually sets you up to build a more successful business, because you stand for something and you're finding different ways to use your business to contribute to that cause. And, giving back could be one of them. Fundraising could be something else. It may be that you start, looking at your product or your service and how you can innovate it or customize it to help a certain cohort or whatever it may be. But
it really points to something that I hear very just all the time when I'm speaking with business owners, and I've had hundreds of conversations. And what is really, particularly with small to medium-sized businesses, I hear often is they're actually very generous and they do give back. They are actually doing things, but it's something that is quite, it's almost like a personal thing. They want to it's almost like a secret. And they're not actually talking about it out there, and they're not putting it out there to their customers or to even their staff sometimes. And so there's this kind of a relationship, I think, that they have to it, which is kind of more personal rather than something that's within their business. So, so for those listeners, and I'm sure there'll be many out there that are in that space where they're probably doing it covertly, where do you recommend that they actually start with that then?
I want to go back to that, because it is such an important piece, and it's a barrier to creating more impact and creating business success. This way of thinking, and it's a very traditional way of thinking, and we've all been sort of just put into that mindset that business, with business, you leave the personal stuff at home. Business is about being professional. Don't talk about what matters to you. Business is business. What you care about in society, that's personal. Leave that stuff at home. And it's I mean, we're seeing businesses who are thriving now because they're making it personal. In fact, purpose isn't powerful until it's personal. Like you'll see a lot of businesses with purpose statements, which really just give context to what they already do. That's not personal, right? It's just a soundbite, and it's pretty empty. But when it's personal, and when you bring what you care about as a business owner or founder or whatever it may be, when you bring that in and start showing up as who you really are, it is so powerful because you start to attract people who care about similar things. It doesn't mean that they care about exactly what you care about. It just may be that they care about contribution, right?
Yes. And
that is a common narrative. That is a common point. And people, this has been proven scientifically, that people make decisions emotionally and they justify them rationally.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And not every decision, well, actually, yes, even the ones where you're looking for the cheapest thing, it's an emotional decision. You want to feel good about your purchase. But the decisions, especially the decisions that we're really motivated by, they're emotional decisions because they reflect the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. Right? So think about, think about the car you've bought. What does it say about you? What do you want it to say about you? What is the story you tell yourself about that car? It doesn't matter whether it's a, high-end Merc or a little zippy nothing. It's a story about who you are, where you live, where you send your kids to school. They're all expressions of who we are or who we want to be. People want to belong to a tribe. It's inherent in us. And this idea translates to purpose, to doing good in business, in the sense of people like us believe things like this.
And how does that then translate, like in the business sense, right? Like, so you say people like us and we want to build a tribe, but in business, what does that mean? How does that look?
It means get personal. It means, the stuff that you're doing because you care about it, but you're too afraid to bring into your business. You're too afraid to talk about it. It means you're not owning who you really are. And because you're not owning who you really are, you're missing a huge opportunity to attract the people that you want to work with. Not just, I want to work with this type of client in this industry, but the kind of people we want to work with. Yeah. And when you get clear on who you are and you bring that clarity into your business, it's your business, right? Bring it into your business, embrace it, and, share it. And we can talk about how you can share it later. But when you actually do that, you attract, people who share that narrative. And they're always going to be nicer people to work with than those who don't.
There's real buy-in. There's real buy-in to, you and your business. And so it's a much deeper level, isn't it? So that really does build a different level of customer loyalty. Yeah, fantastic.
Absolutely.
That's great. So for those, there are, from my experience, there are people are usually in a few different places, that this is something that they are doing and they're kind of doing it covertly, but it could also be that they've been thinking about doing this and it's been something that's kind of on the wish list, right? And they want to get started, but they just don't know where to start. And so, from that perspective, what would you suggest is that, other than actually understanding, that part of your business or who you are and who you want to be, what are the things that people should be considering when they're really starting to explore this and want to actually make some action in this place?
Well, start there. Start with who. Always start with who, and do that work. You know, don't just gloss over it. Actually sit down and do that work and really understand, you know, what is it that lights you up? You know, what are the things that make you that would make you get up in the morning? What are the things you care about? And get clarity on it. Write it down. Just write reams and reams of notes, right? And when you get clarity on, and I always start with, what do I need? You know, what do you need? Then what are the deeper desires? So get the needs out of the way, then start going deeper into the desires, and then go into your beliefs. You know, what do you believe about life, in society, in the role of business, the role of, you know, a citizen like you? What are those beliefs? Like, write them all down. And that's how you build your narrative, right? So you start with who, and then normally with a business that wanted to go on the purpose journey, and this might not be the case with all of your listeners, but then I would say connect that to why your business is here to serve. But if you skip that for a moment, and if we're talking to business founders, owners, leaders who want to do good in their business, and want to know how to do it more effectively, then when you've got clarity on the who, it's how you use it, how you share that to attract people like you. Okay. And that's, I mean, you can use it in many roles, but one of the big channels is marketing. That's the role of marketing. And I know I've had so many people say to me over the years, we do all this good stuff, but we don't talk about it. We don't market it. But, you know, how do you market the good you do? How do you market your purpose? And that question in and of itself reeks of insincerity, right?
And I think this is where it becomes a real barrier for people to talk about it, because they don't want it to come across as inauthentic, or that they're being showy, or that, you know, they're virtue signaling, and so they just don't do anything at all. So how do we bring that in an authentic way that is actually going to land, you know?
Absolutely. And that's such an important question. And I think you've got to get over this idea of marketing is about selling yourself. Marketing is about bigging up yourself, you know, to attract people. Just think of marketing as a way to connect with like-minded people. Okay?
Yeah.
So you reframe how you think about marketing from how do we market our purpose to how do we use our marketing and communications channel to scale our impact. Okay. And there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. The first one is you start thinking about collaboration over communication. So instead of thinking about, I need to communicate that I've been raising money for this organization, instead, why don't you invite others to join your fundraising efforts? You know, think bigger, think more ambitiously, and use your marketing and comms channels to go, hey, I'm planning on doing this fundraising effort, whatever it may be. Maybe it's a cycling thing or whatever. Who wants to join me in my network, or sending it out to your database or whatever? And, you know, even people who don't join you, you sent a very powerful signal of who you are and what's important to you. That will be remembered, right, by the right people. Maybe not the wrong people, but it'll be remembered by the right people. The second one is make others the hero of your story. You don't have to be the hero of your story. In fact, just don't be the hero of your story.
Yes.
Make others the hero of your story, right? Make the cause the hero of your story. Because that, like, if you have a cause that you support, hero that cause. And by doing that, you're telling people who you are, because if you're sharing it authentically, and don't be afraid to share it authentically. Don't be afraid to put yourself into it. But if you share it authentically, it tells them what's important to you. And we all know stories move people, but purpose-driven stories mobilize people. So when you share those stories of the good you're doing, but in a way that is about inviting others to join you, or helping them create their own stories, or sharing the story of the cause, you mobilize people.
Yeah. And I think this is a really undervalued part as well of, say, if organisations do have a partnership with a charity, and particularly if they're smaller, this is it's such a great way to promote those charities as well. Like, this is something that charities don't, smaller charities don't have budget for these sorts of things. And so the value you can add to that relationship that you would have with that organisation or that cause is just tenfold, because they're also getting exposure out to your own networks and people and customers and their staff as well. So that's really very, very underrated, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can I share a story of a...
Yeah, I'd love you to.
So there's a brand called Dave's Killer Bread. Have I shared this one with you, Kirrily?
I've heard it on your podcast, but yeah, okay. Please share it. It's great.
So Dave's Killer Bread started off as, I think it was a Nature Bake, and it was a family-owned bakery in Portland, Oregon, in the US. And the family grew up as Seventh-day Adventists, and they had, I think it was 3 sons. And the younger son, Dave, rebelled against his upbringing, got into alcohol, then got into drugs, then got into armed robbery, and ended up in the criminal justice system. And he ended up in prison 4 times. And the last time was a long stint. His brother, who'd taken over the family business, he came to see him, and he offered him a second chance. In fact, I don't think it was a second chance. I think it was probably, 4th, 5th, 6th chance or whatever. But Dave had also gone through, he'd realized that he was suffering from severe depression, so he was on medication, and he'd gone through this transformation. Anyway, he came out, and he'd also been doing design thinking or something like that. He came out and he took on a project for a new product, a beautiful organic seeded bread. And he was at the market, on their stall selling this bread. And as people came, he would tell the story of being given a second chance. And people just started flocking to the stall. And it resonated with them, right? And anyway, so it took a few years, but they ended up rebranding the bread as Dave's Killer Bread, not because he killed anybody, but because it was this beautiful bread with a killer taste.
Yeah.
The way they did it. And the company developed, basically he said, I was lucky, I got given a second chance. But most people don't. And once you're in the criminal justice system, trying to get a job when you come out is almost impossible. And so he and his brothers opened up the opportunity to employ people who had come out of prison. And at one point, I think they mandated that 1/3 of their employees would come from the criminal justice system or be ex prisoners from the system. And their whole ethos was, it's about giving, someone a job who really appreciates the opportunity and can do a job, and not preventing them from getting a job because of their background. And so they embraced this whole idea of the Second Chance Foundation, and they created a foundation, And they
Wow.
also started educating other businesses about the value of employing people and giving them a second chance.
Amazing.
And in 2015, they sold to, I think it was Flower Foods, for $275 million US.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if you still can, I haven't been for a while, but you could go onto their website and they were loud and proud with it, right? It wasn't like, look at us, look at what we're doing, but it was, this is who we are. This is what we believe in. This is what we care about. This is what we are putting a stake in the ground on. And you could actually look at their people, photos of their people, and click on them and see the stories behind.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Not hidden.
And they were the heroes. They were the heroes of the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose it brings, like, for people, in small business, there's literally hundreds of thousands of small businesses in Australia. In fact, I think there's around 2 million micro, small and medium-sized businesses. And that's, a very competitive market, right? There's a lot of competition that you have out there, particularly in certain industries and sectors. So what do you think they're leaving on the table if they don't look at this and look at, because, there's a lot of opportunities to really stand out with this. And what do you see are the things they're sort of leaving on the table if this is something that's been there in the background and they haven't quite got around to it yet?
I think they're leaving so much opportunity on the table. There's a whole younger generation coming through. And, when I say younger generation, in their 30s and 40s, like, they are going to be the majority in the workforce, in fact, if they're not already, who see business differently and who want to be part of, an effort that's around meaningful work. They don't want to just, sell themselves out for a salary and feel unfulfilled. There's a huge majority of them as employees, as customers and clients, as investors who want to do more. So the businesses that are, showing up in ways that reflect who they are and who are creating space for others to join them to help make an impact, they're attracting high quality people, high quality employees, high quality clients, high quality investors who aren't going to bail on you or harass you, when you have a bad month or anything, because they're in it for different reasons.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to, I don't want to give the impression that profit isn't important, right? Because it is vitally important. Profit and purpose go hand in hand, not head to head, as I said before. And, without profit, you can't scale the impact that you want to make. So profit is absolutely key, but doing good is the key to more success and more profit, because this is where the money is flowing. One of my favorite businesses, which started off as a little business many, many years ago, is Intrepid Travel.
Yes.
They're now a global business, and they are, I hold them up as one of Australia's best examples of purpose-driven business, Melbourne-based. And last year, they were number 2 on AFR's top 100 growth list.
Yeah. And that's incredible, coming off the back of COVID, when the travel industry was one of the ones that was most impacted.
Yep.
Right. So that really is a testament to,
absolutely. And they're on their way to becoming a $1 billion company, having gone to zero during COVID.
Yeah.
So, they're a real local hero, but that is where the money is starting to flow, as I see it. And yeah.
So from today's conversation, Carolyn, what is the thing that you think, would be the one thing that you would really love people to take away from our conversation today?
to understand that bringing what's important to you personally into your business is a huge opportunity for your business.
Great. And one of the things I'd like to ask as well is like, what's one of your favorite quotes that you think really reinforces, the conversation that we're having today, that you would like to leave people with?
There's a quote by Professor Colin, who is a professor at Oxford University's business school. And he has defined the purpose of business. So he says the purpose of business is to create profitable solutions to the problems of people and planet, not to profit from creating problems.
Beautiful.
And I just think, let that sink in. I think, the way business has been set up to be the last 50 years is make money and the rest will follow. That's not delivering.
That's
and
right.
Our wealth gap is growing wider and wider. And, business is the institution, small business, medium size, large, just the institution that has the capacity to create the greatest impact. And I think the opportunity is for businesses to embrace that.
Yeah, great. So, Caroline, thank you so much for being on our inaugural podcast for Force for Good today. It's been great to have you on with us just to share, and I think it's really set up, what the advantage is for businesses to, having a look at this and seeing what they can do to make an impact through their business.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to have this chat to you, Kirrily.
Thanks. And we'll make sure that we put in the show notes any of the references that we've been talking about today, sharing some of the great stories that Caroline was talking about as well, about some of the businesses that are already making a great impact.